So, as I stated before, when I worked for McAfee and lived on the property, that was during a period of his life, which I'm starting to feel like might have been one of the only periods of his life, or adult life anyway, when he was sober. And he wasn't shy about it, and in fact, he was quite strict about it. So, those of us who lived on the property were also not allowed to have drugs or alcohol of any kind in our home or drink while we were at home. That was just a rule. No substances on the property, which was not an issue for me because at that time I was completely disinterested in those things, so wasn't an issue. But anyhow, he did mention and talk about that he had been addicted to cocaine in the past, and there may have been other things, but that was the only one I ever heard him talk about. And again, he wasn't shy about it or anything, but he was quite strict, and he had like a very constant routine. When he was at the house in Colorado, he would wake up in the morning, meditate, do some stuff on the computer, come down once myself and the house manager and other people started to kind of like roll in. He would come down and have a coffee or an espresso, and then sometimes he would have breakfast first, sometimes he would have breakfast after, but his trainer would come over and they would either go into the gym and lift weights, or they would go for a walk, or sometimes both. Usually he would do a hike on the property at some point, and that it didn't matter. Like if it was middle of winter and there was tons of snow, he'd throw on his gaiters and slippers and go out with poles and hike the property. And if it was summer, didn't need all the gear, but that was what he did every single day. And then he would come back, usually do like a little more computer work, shower, go upstairs for a bit, come down, then he'd have lunch, and then often I wouldn't see him in the afternoons or the evenings, but his morning routine was always quite like rigid, I would say. He was rigid about it. But meditation was definitely a part of his routine, and he also, during that time, he had a publication company called the Woodland Press, and I think that's because we lived in a place close to a town called Woodland Park. And I definitely observed him reading a lot on the subject, and he had a couple, if not more, at least 2 silent meditation retreats on the property where people would come for a long weekend. Sometimes it'd be 4 or 5 days, and they would, stay out in the meditation cabins, of which there were like 8 on the property. There was no electricity or running water to those cabins. They were very purposefully like very simplistic wood burning fire kind of situation, and little ponds nearby and stuff like that. But and then we had a yoga space that was really big, and he would have like breath workshops, and they would be packed. The room would be packed with like 50 to 100 people doing like breathing and breath workshops, fire breathing type stuff, if you will. And he also, so he wrote a couple books. Maybe he might have even written 3. I think that you can look them up. It's like The Fabric of Life and The Fabric of Self, or Fabric of the Universe, or something to that effect. And I think I might have read them back then, but I don't remember them. And I feel like the information that was contained in them, it might have, come through his own brain, but was very similar to me. I just remember it was very similar to me to other books I'd read. Mind you, at this time, for those of you who don't know,